Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient forest, where the trees whisper secrets older than civilization itself. The air hums with an energy that feels both foreign and intimately familiar, as though some long-buried truth is straining to break through the surface of your consciousness. This is the sensation that greets you when you first encounter the promise of this ancient secret will rewire your brain in 7 days. Do this now. It is not merely a technique, not just another self-help strategy, but something far more profound, an invitation to step into a hidden current of human potential, one that has flowed silently beneath the noise of modern life for millennia. The modern world is a labyrinth of distractions, a ceaseless churn of notifications, obligations, and shallow engagements that leave the mind fragmented, the spirit weary. We have been conditioned to believe that transformation is slow, that mastery is the result of years, if not decades, of grinding effort. But what if there exists a forgotten key, a neural cipher hidden in the annals of ancient wisdom, capable of unlocking rapid, radical change? The idea that the brain can be rewired in just 7 days may sound audacious, even impossible, yet it echoes a truth that mystics, monks, and sages have known for ages. The mind is far more malleable than we've been led to believe. Consider the metaphor of a river. Most of us live as though trapped in its current, carried along by habits, societal conditioning, and unconscious reflexes. We mistake the river's flow for inevitability, never realizing that with the right leverage, we can redirect its course. The ancient secret in question is not a single monolithic truth, but rather a synthesis of timeless principles. Neuroplasticity harnessed through ritual, intention sharpened by repetition, and perception altered by deliberate focus. It is the alchemy of turning leaden thought patterns into golden awareness, a metamorphosis as old as human consciousness itself. There is something almost cosmic in this proposition. The brain, that 3-pound universe of synaptic constellations, is not a fixed entity, but a living, breathing ecosystem of possibility. Every thought you think, every habit you reinforce, is a star being born or dying in the neural firmament. To rewire the brain in 7 days is not a hack, but a homecoming, a return to the natural state of fluid adaptability that our ancestors accessed through meditation, storytelling, and sacred ceremony. The modern world has simply made us forget how to listen. Yet this is not merely an esoteric revelation. The implications are staggeringly practical. What if anxiety could be dissolved not through years of therapy, but in a week of disciplined mental reframing? What if creativity, now stifled by self-doubt, could be unleashed like a torrent by a simple shift in neural pathways? The promise here is not magic, though it may feel like it. It is the reclamation of an innate human ability to shape our own minds with precision and purpose. But why 7 days? The number is not arbitrary. Across cultures, 7 is a sacred numeral, a symbol of completion, cycles, and rebirth. The 7 days of creation, the 7 chakras, the 7 notes of the musical scale, all point to a deeper architecture of transformation. In neurobiological terms, 7 days is the threshold where new synaptic connections begin to solidify, where practice transitions into habit, where the ephemeral becomes embodied. It is the liminal space between intention and integration. So as we stand at the threshold of this exploration, let us cast aside skepticism, not in favor of blind faith, but in service of curiosity. What if the ancients were not primitive, but pioneers of cognition, explorers of inner space, whose discoveries we are only now, with our fMRI scans and neurochemical maps, beginning to validate? The journey ahead is not just about rewiring the brain. It is about rewiring reality itself, for the mind is the lens through which all experience is filtered. Change the lens and the world changes with it. To grasp the essence of this ancient secret will rewire your brain in 7 days, do this now. We must first step beyond the superficial allure of quick fixes and into the deeper currents that sustain it. This is not a mere collection of tips or life hacks, but an excavation of principles so fundamental that they shape the very fabric of perception. Principles that have been whispered in the halls of monasteries, encoded in myth, and now slowly being unearthed by modern neuroscience. At its core, this ancient secret revolves around 3 interwoven themes: neuroplasticity as conscious evolution, the alchemy of attention, and the ritualization of transformation. These are not disparate ideas, but different facets of the same jewel, each reflecting light onto the others in a dance of cause and effect. neuroplasticity as conscious evolution. For centuries, the brain was seen as a rigid organ, its pathways set in stone after a critical period of development. But the discovery of neuroplasticity shattered this illusion, revealing that the brain is more like wet clay than carved marble, constantly reshaped by experience, thought, and deliberate practice. The ancients may not have had the language of synaptic pruning or dendritic growth, but they understood the principle intuitively. What you focus on, you become. Meditation, for instance, was not merely a relaxation technique, but a precise tool for neural rewiring. Monks who spent years in contemplative practice didn't just feel calmer. Their brains physically changed, thickening regions associated with focus and emotional regulation, while quieting the noise of the default mode network, that incessant inner narrator. The 7-day promise, then, is not about instant mastery, but about jump-starting this process, compressing what might have taken years of passive experience into a week of intentional conditioning. The alchemy of attention is the golden thread running through all transformation. Where it goes, energy flows, and where energy flows, the brain adapts. This is why the modern crisis of distraction is not just an inconvenience, but a form of neurological sabotage. Every time we fracture our focus between a dozen tabs, notifications, and half-formed thoughts, we reinforce neural pathways of fragmentation, teaching the brain to crave chaos over clarity. The ancient secret reverses this. It recognizes attention as a sacred currency, finite, powerful, and capable of reshaping reality. Whether through breathwork, mantra, or sensory immersion, the key is single-pointed focus, a laser-like precision that burns away distraction and forges new connections. In 7 days, this is not about perfection, but pattern interruption, breaking the trance of automaticity and rewiring the brain toward presence. The ritualization of transformation ritual is the bridge between intention and embodiment. The modern world has stripped away the ceremonial aspects of change, reducing self-improvement to sterile checklists and apps. But the ancients knew that for something to take root in the mind, it must first be etched into the body, through repetition, symbolism, and conscious repetition. The 7-day framework is itself a ritual, a microcosm of the hero's journey compressed into a week. Each day is not just a step, but an initiation, a shedding of an old layer of self and the integration of a new one. This is why so many spiritual traditions emphasize week-long cycles, because time, when sanctified by ritual, becomes a crucible for metamorphosis. The illusion of time and the reality of shifts. One of the most radical implications of this ancient secret is its challenge to linear time. We assume that change must be gradual, that growth is a slow accumulation, but history and neuroscience show us that transformation often happens in leaps. A single insight can unravel years of conditioning. A week of intense practice can rewire what a lifetime of passive routine could not. This is the hidden truth beneath the 7-day promise. Not that you will emerge a completely new person, but that you will cross a threshold, a point of no return where the old mind can no longer reclaim its dominance. The brain, once shown a new way of being, cannot fully unsee it. The shadow of resistance. Yet for all its promise, this path is not without its guardians at the gate. The mind accustomed to its familiar loops will resist. There will be moments when the practice feels futile, when the pull of distraction is overwhelming, when the ego whispers that this is all nonsense. This resistance is not a flaw, but a feature. The friction that proves a transformation is real. The ancients frame this as a battle with inner demons. Modern psychology calls it cognitive dissonance. But the essence is the same. Growth demands confrontation with the parts of ourselves that prefer stagnation. The 7-day structure is a container strong enough to hold that tension, long enough to tip the scales. The symphony of the old and new. What makes this ancient secret so potent is its synthesis of timeless wisdom and contemporary understanding. It does not reject science in favor of mysticism, nor does it reduce the sacred to the clinical. Instead, it reveals that they have been speaking the same truth all along, one in poetry, the other in data. To rewire the brain in 7 days is to step into this confluence where the precision of beneath the surface of practical techniques and neuroscientific principles. This ancient secret will rewire your brain in 7 days. Do this now, is woven with mythic threads, archetypal stories that have guided human transformation for millennia. These are not mere fables but encoded wisdom, maps of the inner journey disguised as folklore. To fully grasp the power of this 7-day metamorphosis, we must step into the realm of symbolism, where the personal and the universal merge. The Hero's Week, a microcosm of the monomyth. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, departure, initiation, return, has long been the blueprint for transformation. But what if this epic arc could be distilled into 7 days? The ancients understood that time is fractal. The same patterns that govern a lifetime also unfold in a week, a day, even a single breath. Each of the 7 days mirrors a stage of the hero's passage. Day 1, the call to adventure. The moment you commit, the familiar world begins to unravel. Resistance arises, but so does a quiet knowing that there is no turning back. Day 2 to 3, crossing the threshold. The old mental habits protest louder, like a dying flame flaring brightest before it extinguishes. This is where many falter, mistaking the struggle for failure. Day 4, the dark night, the midpoint crisis. The brain, addicted to its loops, screams for the comfort of distraction. Here, the practice feels hollow, pointless. Yet this is the crucible, the moment when true rewiring begins. Day 5 to 6, revelation. The first glimpses of a new mind, subtle shifts in perception, like dawn breaking after a long night. The neural pathways, once rigid, now show plasticity. Day 7, the return. Not an end, but a beginning. You emerge not as a new person, but as someone who can no longer unsee the mechanisms of their own mind. This is the secret power of the 7-day container. It compresses the hero's journey into a digestible arc, making the invisible war of transformation tangible. The alchemist's crucible, turning lead into gold. Alchemy was never truly about metals. It was about the mind. The nigredo, blackening, albedo, whitening, and rubedo, reddening stages mirror the 7-day process. First, dissolution, the breaking down of old mental constructs, days 1 to 3. Then purification, the burning away of distractions, leaving only essence, days 4 to 5. Finally, integration, the crystallization of a new way of being, days 6 to 7. The ancient secret is this very formula, not a passive waiting for change, but an active putrefaction and rebirth of the self. The garden of forking paths, neural pruning as mythic choice. In Borges' famous story, every decision spawns a new universe. The brain operates similarly. Each thought strengthens some neural pathways while others atrophy. The 7-day rewiring is a deliberate gardening of the mind. What you water grows. Focus on patience, and the brain prunes impatience. What you neglect withers. Withdraw attention from anxiety, and its neural roots starve. This is why the ancients spoke in parables. The seeds you plant in the mind determine the forest of your future self. The Phoenix Protocol. Death and rebirth in 7 days. The phoenix does not resist its immolation. It embraces it. The 7-day reset follows the same logic. Burn the old, days 1 through 3, disrupting habits. Rise from ash, days 4 to 5, forging new connections. Take flight, days 6 to 7, embodying the change. Modern science calls this synaptic pruning, but the mythic lens reveals it as something sacred, a voluntary death of the lesser self. The labyrinth and the thread. Ancient initiation rites often involved labyrinths, a winding path to the center, then back out. The 7-day journey is this labyrinth in miniature. The descent, days 1 through 4, feels chaotic, disorienting. The center, day 5, is the moment of clarity. I am the architect of my mind. The return, days 6 to 7, is where wisdom integrates into daily life. Ariadne's thread, the practice itself, is what prevents you from getting lost in the maze of your own resistance. Why these stories matter. These narratives are not decoration, they are cognitive tools. The brain encodes information more deeply when wrapped in story, symbolism, and ritual. By framing the 7-day rewiring as a mythic journey, we tap into a primal mechanism for change, one that bypasses rational skepticism and speaks directly to the subconscious. The grandest truths are useless if they remain abstract. What makes this ancient secret will rewire your brain in 7 days, do this now, so compelling is not just its cosmic undertones or mythic parallels, but its concrete, actionable power. The way it translates ancient wisdom into the rhythms of modern life. This is where philosophy meets pavement, where the alchemy of transformation is tested against the friction of daily existence. The architecture of a revolutionary week. To rewire the brain in 7 days is not about adding more to an already overflowing life. It's about strategic subtraction and reorientation. Imagine your mind as a cluttered room. Before arranging new furniture, you must first clear the debris. The 7-day process follows a similar logic, moving through 3 phases. Days 1 to 2, the unplugging. The modern mind is addicted to noise. Endless scrolling, multitasking, the dopamine hits of distraction. The first 2 days are a detox from this cognitive pollution. This doesn't require monastic silence, but rather a deliberate pruning of inputs. Designate periods of digital fasting. No screens for the last hour of the day. Replace reactive habits, checking emails, news, social media upon waking, with intentional ones. 5 minutes of breath work, journaling, or silent observation. The goal here isn't perfection, but pattern interruption. Breaking the autopilot that keeps neural ruts entrenched. Days 3 to 5, the rewiring with the static of distraction dialed down, the brain becomes more receptive to change. This is where focused practices take root. Directed neuroplasticity, use targeted mental exercises to strengthen desired pathways. For example, if cultivating calm, practice 10 minutes of noting meditation, labeling thoughts, planning, worrying, without engaging them. If building creativity, engage in morning free writing or divergent thinking drills, e.g., list 20 uses for a paperclip. Embodied rituals, pair mental shifts with physical anchors. A simple posture change, standing tall when feeling doubt, or tactile ritual, holding a smooth stone during moments of anxiety, leverages the brain's sensory motor networks to cement new states. Days 6 to 7, the integration. The final phase bridges insight into daily life. Instead of relying on isolated practice sessions, begin weaving new patterns into mundane activities. Turn daily walks into mindfulness drills. Notice 3 sensory details, the sound of leaves, the pressure of your footfall, to ground attention. Use habit stacking. Attach a new neural habit, e.g., pausing to breathe before responding to stress, to an existing routine, like answering the phone. The science of sudden shifts. Critics might dismiss 7-day transformation as hyperbole, but research supports the plausibility of rapid rewiring. Flashbulb memories. Traumatic or ecstatic events can rewire perception in an instant, e.g., near-death experiences altering life priorities overnight. Directed mental effort can mimic this intensity. BMRI studies. Just 11 hours of meditation can measurably change brain structure, thickening areas linked to focus and emotional regulation. Placebo effects. Belief itself alters neurochemistry, a principle the ancients harnessed through ritual. Framing the week as a sacred experiment primes the brain for change. Real-world applications. From theory to tactics, anxiety to agency, day 1 to 2. Identify worry triggers, e.g., news consumption, certain relationships, and impose a 48-hour moratorium. Day 3 to 5. Substitute rumination with action scripting, writing down 1 micro-step towards solving a concern, e.g., email the doctor to schedule that checkup. Action rewires the brain from helplessness to agency. Day 6 to 7. Practice fear setting, a la Tim Ferriss. Define the worst-case scenario, its likelihood, and a recovery plan. This drains anxiety's power by making the subconscious explicit. Creative unleashing day 1 to 2. Consume only creative fuel, no passive entertainment. Instead, art, nature, or music that inspires. Day 3 to 5. Morning idea storms. Set a timer for 5 minutes and spew raw, unfiltered concepts, quality irrelevant. This bypasses the inner critic. Day 6 to 7. Implement the 10% rule. Devote 10% of a daily task, e.g. a work email, to playful experimentation. A pun, a sketch in the margin. Focus reclamation. Day 1 to 2. Single tasking drills. Commit to 25-minute blocks with 0 distractions, phone in another room. Day 3 to 5. Attention weightlifting. Gradually extend deep work sessions, 45 minutes, then 60 minutes, with deliberate rest intervals. Day 6 to 7. Environmental redesign. Arrange your workspace to minimize visual clutter. A clean desk signals the brain to focus. The hidden obstacles and how to navigate them. The Day 4. Crash. As the brain's old patterns fight back, motivation wanes. Solution? Pre-plan a reward anchor, e.g. a favorite walk or meal, to push through. The "this is silly" saboteur. The rational mind rebels against unquantifiable change. Counter by tracking micro wins, e.g. noticed I was distracted 3 times today, 2 fewer than yesterday. The isolation trap. Transformation thrives in community. Even solo practitioners benefit from sharing progress. A journal, a trusted friend. Beyond the 7 days, the ripple effects. The true measure of this week isn't what happens within it, but what unfolds after. Like a stone dropped in a pond, the initial changes create widening ripples. Habit momentum. Small wins build self-trust, making larger changes feel possible. Perceptual shifts. Once you witness your mind's malleability, you approach all challenges with the experimenter's curiosity. The flywheel effect. As neuroscientist Donald Hebb put it, neurons that fire together, wire together. Each repetition makes the next easier. We stand now at the threshold, not just of understanding, but of becoming. The journey through this ancient secret will rewire your brain in 7 days, do this now, has unfolded like an ancient map, revealing both the terrain of the mind and the pathways to its mastery. From the philosophical depths to the practical steps, from the mythic narratives to the neural mechanisms, one truth emerges with crystalline clarity. You are not a prisoner of your brain's wiring, but its architect, the alchemy of choice. Every moment, your attention is a chisel, sculpting the marble of your mind. The ancients knew this. The monks who sat in caves for decades, the shamans who danced with fire, the philosophers who wrestled with existence. They were not merely seeking enlightenment. They were practicing it, forging new neural realities through repetition and ritual. The modern world, with its endless distractions, has made us forget this fundamental power. But forgetting is not the same as losing. The ability to rewire yourself in 7 days is not a loophole in reality. It is a return to your birthright. The 7-day crucible. This week-long transformation is not a gimmick, but a microcosm of what's possible when you align with the deeper rhythms of change. Day 1 to 2. The unplugging. You step out of the river of distraction and observe its currents. Day 3 to 5. The rewiring. You begin to redirect the flow, carving new channels in the bedrock of habit. Day 6 to 7. The integration. You realize the river was never the master. It was always you. This is the secret hiding in plain sight. Transformation doesn't happen to you. It happens through you. The 7-day framework is simply a container, a focused space where you reclaim your agency over your own mind. The ripple effect of a rewired mind. What begins as a personal experiment soon becomes a seismic shift in how you engage with reality. When you rewire your brain, you don't just change your thoughts, you change your world. Consider the cascading effects. Relationships. As reactivity diminishes, presence grows. Conversations deepen. Conflicts lose their edge. Work. Clarity replaces overwhelm. Procrastination gives way to flow. Self-perception, the stories of I can't or I'm not the type of person who dissolve into curiosity and experimentation. This is the true promise of the ancient secret, not just a better brain, but a more vibrant life, the invitation. Now the choice is yours. You can close this book, file these ideas away as interesting, and return to the familiar currents of your unexamined mind. Or you can begin, not tomorrow, not next Monday, but now. The 7-day reset is not a theory to ponder. It is a practice to embody. Here's your call to action. Define your why. What neural habit do you most want to change? What vision pulls you forward? Write it down. Commit publicly. Tell one person about your 7-day experiment. Accountability bridges intention and action. Start small, but start. The first ritual is always the hardest. Begin with 5 minutes, then build. The eternal return. This is not a one-time fix, but a revelation. You can return to this process again and again. The brain is not a machine to be tuned once, but a garden to be tended daily. 7 days is just the beginning, the spark that lights the fire. The ancients whispered these secrets in sacred texts and initiation rites. Today, neuroscience confirms them with PET scans and synaptic maps. The convergence is undeniable. You have the power to rewire your mind, and in doing so, reshape your reality. The only question left is, will you? This concludes our exploration. The path is laid before you. Step forward.